Welcome to the Voices of Wellbeing podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alexis Travis, Senior Associate Vice President for University Health and Wellbeing. Today, I am joined by Vice President Dr. Hintz, Vice President of Student Affairs here at MSU. We'll be talking about health and well-being and its role in student success. So, Dr. Hintz, I'm honored to have you on the podcast, especially as you're my boss, my supervisor. Yeah. We've had the pleasure of working together for a year now. As you come to the end of your first year and wrapping up that first academic cycle at MSU, can you tell us about your year in East Lansing? What are some of the things that stand out to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Travis, for having me on. This is an exciting opportunity to connect with you and the audience in this space. But almost been 1 year. So started August 4th of last year. So we're coming up on the anniversary of me being here. And year one has been really great in a lot of different ways. Coming into a new environment, a lot of it has been listening and learning in terms of what is going well, what are some challenges, what are some opportunities for investment going forward. Certainly on the student affairs side initially here, but also really getting to know University Health and Wellbeing and the great work that's happening in this space. And again, just looking for opportunities to how we continue to support that work and being able to invest in the things that matter moving forward. But the community's been welcoming, and it's been a great year thus far.
Yeah, you've had this year focused on listening, exploring opportunities. You've really emerged as a champion for health and well-being, and I'm really grateful for that. As you move forward, how do you intend to make sure that student voices remain centered in the work that we're doing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the students are really imperative to the work that we do. A lot of what the mission of this institution revolves around or connects to students. There are other research and community outreach as well, but a lot of it is related to students, and without them, it really changes the dynamic of the institution. And so making sure that their voices are centered is really important. A couple ways we can do that is just, myself, I like to spend time in student spaces where the students are. So getting out there and connecting with kind of formal student leaders that are either elected or identified by their peers, or just hanging out in student spaces where students are. So places where they're hanging out, studying, events that they're going to, and just identifying myself and just kind of seeing how their experience is going. But I think it's important to help the staff understand that they need to keep students centered in that way as well. But also, frankly, I think it's important to keep the staff centered because without the staff, then we're not going to be able to support the students in the way we need to as well. So just making sure that we think about the impacts of our decisions on the staff and not just the students, but students kind of being primary. The president has a saying that he likes to say around being bold, strategic, bold, and student focused, and that's something that resonates with me in the work that we do.
Yeah, that's so true, though. And I've seen you out there in the community interacting with students, but also centering our faculty and our staff and making sure that they're well positioned to provide that support to allow us to reach student success. So what are the core values that guide your decision-making when supporting students at scale? Is there a specific mile marker that you use to know progress?
Yeah, I think part of it, generically speaking, is like student success. Like, what are we doing in the spaces that are helping students be successful? And that you can look at kind of on a macro level and what are the levers that we can do and the things that we can do to help students be successful. But then there's, students are individuals, right? And so what in either small pockets or individually can we be doing that makes their experience here special, that makes them feel like they belong in this space, that this place is home to them. And so sense of belonging is something that is rooted in the values that I think about and how we're creating this space for students. I rolled out kind of a commitment several weeks ago, or a couple months ago, I guess, with our team, thinking about what are the values and what are the outcomes that we're hoping to achieve, and belonging was foundational to that. The other one being engagement, and how are we helping students engage in their experience so they're not just passive, but they're active in their own experience here, and that could be in their health and well-being journey as well. Thriving is something we want them to be doing here, so not just surviving but thriving. Yes. And so obviously health and well-being is a huge component of when someone feels like they're thriving in a particular space, and then ultimately leading. We want them to be leading not only in the spaces here as students, but leading when they go out and they graduate in their communities and their career, et cetera. And certainly being able to champion and understanding how health and well-being impacts leadership, but impacts the people that one is leading is certainly imperative as well. So I think health and well-being is woven into all of those principles as we move forward.
I agree. And I think that last one about leading is something that I think we encourage people around, because anyone can be a leader, right?
Absolutely.
And so helping people to see that potential, but then supporting their health and well-being so that they can reach their full potential. So we have many wonderful peers in the Big Ten. One of the things that I appreciate about you as my supervisor is, even in our regular conversations, you're always able to bring in insights from other institutions that you've worked in and have experience with. So from your experience, what makes MSU unique in terms of our health and well-being?
Yeah. Well, I think I've worked at, as you mentioned, other universities, and I think they have really strong components to them. But I think there is some uniqueness to Michigan State that I've identified and noticed in just my just under a year being here. And I think part of it is the passion and the true commitment to care. And that's not to say that places I've been don't care, or the people don't care, but it's really embedded here. Like this idea of we care about students, we care about the community, we care about each other. And that plays out, I think, in the history of this place. And so you look at the many first in the nation kinds of activities that are happening here, it's rooted out of the community caring, right? And so whether you're talking about, the Spartan Shelf and the food bank that predated that and kind of being first in the nation, or the way we've approached how we support survivors of sexual assault and sexual violence, we're doing some really leading work in that space and have been doing that for some time. Whether we're talking about students in recovery and the work that's happening in that space, there's just a lot of first in the nations, best in the nation, and it's all rooted in this principle that I've understood to be here as a passion and a caring for the people around each one of us, and I think that's what makes this place special.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, because I think when it comes to this culture of care, we have centered that, and we, have pursued that as a community. And those first in nation and only in nation programs, we have a phenomenal team in UHW, now part of Student Affairs. But on top of that, we have this outstanding community of folks who all have made that choice to care for one another and for the community at large. So on that note, college life can be really complex, and we know that, people struggle with different things. What do you wish that more people, and students specifically, understood about mental health?
Yeah. Well, I think that, mental health is one of those topics that I think is becoming more centered in awareness around the college student experience. Not that it's always been there, but I think it's becoming more prevalent in terms of people having an understanding of the impact and how things that the university can do to set up support systems for students that have mental health challenges, from very small things to significant things, really makes a difference in students being able to be successful and ultimately not only be here, but to thrive and ultimately to graduate and be successful afterwards. And so I think that's a topic that, again, is less stigma is being built around it. There's more awareness. Students talk about it a little bit more openly. I think there's still some work to be done in that space, but I also think that we have to keep up in terms of resources available, because as students are expecting those resources, as parents and families and supporters are expecting those resources, that's something that we have to continue to do. I think we're doing really great work in that space here, but there's always more that we can provide in terms of support and resources in that space.
Yeah, I think, you touched on this a little bit, but it's around like how social norms and pop culture have positioned mental health. And, now that a lot more people are accepting of mental health, we have to make sure that we have the services available and accessible to meet those needs as well. With that in mind, what worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today, and we've talked about how services and supports need to evolve to meet the needs of today and also tomorrow and way into the future. How important is it for MSU to continue to evolve to meet student needs, not only for Gen Z, Gen Alpha, but even thinking 20 years into the future to Gen Beta? How can we address that and keep up?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is just investing in the people that are providing the services and helping them become aware of the trends and kind of the specialties that may emerge based on different generations and what's emerging there. I think the modalities of service and how those are delivered, the typical, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 service hours is not something that students understand or expect nowadays with the way the world works. It's just in time, it's 24 hours, it's
On
when
demand.
they're needed, all those things. And so how do we design services in a way that meet those expectations and those needs in a world where they're on and leveraging technology 24/7, 365? And that's something that I think we need to be thinking about. And I know we're doing some good work in that space. We've created not only a great team on campus, but we've connected with partners to extend services through telehealth and other opportunities. But I think we just need to continue to pay attention to that and not just live in our laurels and sit in where we're at now, because it's constantly evolving and paying attention to those trends and what students are experiencing. But also I think educating the campus on what those trends are is really important, because I think there's things that the campus can do outside of the clinical counseling setting that can help with students' mental health. How we think about classrooms and how we are delivering the education and the expectations in the classroom. And this is not to say you change the rigor, but maybe the modality changes in the classroom based on student needs, et cetera, or how we're delivering programs and services to students outside. And so not only the work that's happening in the clinical space, but just the trends that those that are doing that work can share with the campus, I think is important as well.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the classroom space, because it's not everything outside of the classroom and then there's the classroom.
Yeah.
It's the classroom and everything else, right? And so, I think that we have a role to play as a community. Each person with their respective roles can create an environment that's supportive of mental health. So, I appreciate that. What does it look like to foster a sense of connection and belonging for every student on a large campus?
Yeah, I think it's one of our challenges being a large campus, is how do we create that? Because we have students coming from all over the world, frankly, here, and so they all come with different perspectives and experiences and expectations. And so the idea is to create not one sort of one catch-all template for every student, but creating a lot of different experiences, a lot of ways to connect with each other, a lot of ways to create community, whether that's for some students, they love a large community. They want to be involved in large organizations. They want to go to large events. For others, it doesn't feel that way. They want a more intimate kind of experience. And I think we've done a good job of creating different pathways, but I think just paying attention to that as well, that not every student is the same. Not every student wants the same experience. If we go back to the idea of sense of belonging, that looks different for different students and what that means for them. And so we just need to be paying attention to just not saying, well, if this works for this student, it should work for every student. Right. In reality, there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of opportunity to create variety. But I think one of the biggest things is helping students create community. One of the things I've noticed kind of, and it feels a little different post-COVID, is that, or maybe it was starting before that, but it feels like a defining moment in my own career in terms of how students interact. We used to be able to, or maybe I just thought we were doing this well, maybe we weren't, but we used to be able to have like major programs who bring all the, the first year students together and say, okay, and we would just expect that they would create community because we've physically brought them together. And what we're learning is that students actually need a little bit more prompting to how to interact with each other in person, because they're so used to being on their phones or interacting that way. Is how do we get them to create community in person? And so it's just not about bringing 5,000 people together, but it's like, how do you create the spaces where that feels comfortable,
right,
and give them kind of the cues to make those connections. And I think that's something different than kind of a pre-COVID experience that we have to think differently about, as one example.
Yeah. It's definitely very, very different. And I can say that as a mother of two Gen Z, teens who are at that age going off to university. And I think about our work on campus and making sure that students are informing those opportunities, because it's kind of like that nothing about us without us, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that we're all aligned around that. So thinking about parents, as I mentioned, being a parent myself, what should parents know about sending their students off to become a Spartan at MSU?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is that you're sending them a place that cares, as I mentioned before, deeply about the student experience. Being a large place is sometimes students, frankly, can get lost a little bit in the place. And so I think an important message, and I share this with first-year parents. I was doing some of our summer orientation programs, and I was talking to parents, and I was saying, look, we are a large place that cares, but sometimes we don't always know if there's a challenge. And so really encouraging parents to encourage their students to reach out and to connect and ask questions is particularly important, because once they do that, I think they're going to find a really caring environment. But taking that first step is sometimes hard, or knowing where to go to. Just start with somebody, because if you start with somebody, they're going to connect you to the right folks.
Right.
And so I think parents should know that this is a place that is going to do everything we can to help their student be successful. We admitted them because we think they can graduate, right? We think they can earn a degree here and represent the community and represent the Spartan nation well at the end of this. And so that's our commitment to them. And so they need to help their student lean into that if they have challenges or they have questions about, sense of belonging, thriving, engaging, and leading.
Yeah. No question is too big, no question is too small.
Exactly.
Right? And you've captured actually the essence of a lot of our staff who talk about being in their offices and wanting students to come in and waiting for students to come in. And so, as well as that culture of care. So what role can students, faculty, and staff play in fostering health and well-being on our campus?
Well, I think one thing they can do is they can talk about it. And they can talk about that it's important. There's a lot of things that we talk about that are important, studying and going to class and learning the subject matter and making friends, but really being able to talk about it, even just in broad ways, that what health and wellness is important. They might not be experts in that space particularly, but I think they can reference at a high level that those, at least in principle, those things are important, that we as an institution care about the students' health and well-being, and that there are resources to help them navigate that if they need them. And so I think just being able to do that, I think you can connect with, there are lots of units that, faculty and staff that aren't, rooted in the health and well-being space as experts can connect with and be supportive of. And we also have the collective, the Spartan Wellbeing Collective that faculty and staff can connect to if they really have a passion and they want to dig in and be supportive. There are mechanisms to kind of formally bring them into a process and engage them in advancing these principles moving forward.
Yeah, those are some great ways that people can contribute, can get involved, and talking about it, because we talk about the things that matter, right?
Yes, right,
and
right.
So, So Dr. Hintz, thank you again for joining us again today on the podcast. I appreciate your time, your responses, and I hope that this conversation inspires folks to really get involved, to talk more about health and well-being, and to know that it's important for students, but also taking care of their own health and well-being.
Absolutely.
I'm Dr. Alexis Travis for University Health and Wellbeing. Thank you for being with us today. And remember, you matter.